Tonight, you are invited to step away from the endless chatter of the world and enter the sacred silence of an ancient Buddhist monastery. Here, nestled high in the mist-covered mountains, Master Yeshe tends to a garden where wisdom grows, as naturally as morning dew on lotus petals. You carry with you tonight the weight of your day, the fullness of your thoughts, the overflow of your concerns. But here, in this timeless place, you will discover the profound teaching of the empty cup and learn why sometimes the most beautiful vessel is the one that holds nothing at all. Let yourself settle now as we begin this journey together. Welcome, dear friend. I'm honored to guide you through this peaceful evening. Allow your breath to slow, your shoulders to soften, as we enter this sacred space together. You find yourself walking along a winding mountain path, your footsteps silent on the moss-covered stones. The air is cool and clean, carrying the gentle fragrance of jasmine and cedar. Ahead, through the morning mist, the golden roofs of the monastery appear like a dream made manifest. The heavy wooden gates of the monastery stand open, as if expecting your arrival. You pass through and immediately feel a profound sense of peace wash over you. The world outside, with its urgent demands and endless noise, seems to fade away like morning mist touched by sunlight. Before you stretches the most beautiful garden you have ever seen. Ancient cherry trees line pathways of raked gravel, their branches heavy with pink blossom that fall like gentle snow. A small stream winds through the garden, its water singing a soft, eternal song over smooth river stones. And there, kneeling beside a patch of carefully tended earth, is Master Yeshe. His movements are slow and deliberate as he tends to young bamboo shoots, each gesture filled with mindful attention. His weathered hands work with the soil as if greeting an old friend. He looks up at your approach, and his eyes crinkle with warmth. Without words, he gestures for you to sit beside him on a worn wooden bench overlooking the garden. The morning sun filters through the leaves above, creating patterns of light and shadow that dance across the peaceful scene. As you settle into the quiet rhythm of the garden, Master Yeshe begins to share a story, not with urgency, but with the patient cadence of someone who has learned that the most important teachings unfold in their own time. Many years ago, he says, his voice barely above a whisper, a renowned scholar came to visit our monastery. This was a man of great learning, his mind filled with the wisdom of countless books, his memory sharp with the words of ancient philosophers. He had traveled far to meet with the previous master of this place, seeking answers to questions that had troubled him for years. You can almost see this scholar as Master Yeshe describes him, walking up the same mountain path you have just traveled, his robes fine and clean, his step confident with the certainty of someone accustomed to being the wisest person in any room. When he arrived, Master Yeshe continues, the scholar was immediately ushered into the presence of the old master. The meeting took place here, in this very garden, at the small stone table beneath the ancient pine tree. The old master, a woman of 70 years whose eyes held the depth of mountain pools, welcomed the scholar with a simple bow. She invited him to sit, and then, in the tradition of hospitality, she began to prepare tea. The tea ceremony that followed was one of exquisite simplicity. The old master heated water in a small iron kettle, her movements so fluid they seemed like a dance. The water began to sing, first a whisper, then a gentle murmur, finally the full voice of water ready to receive the tea leaves. As she worked, the scholar began to speak. His words tumbled forth like water breaking through a dam. Questions about the nature of enlightenment, theories about the path to wisdom, debates about the meanings of ancient texts. He quoted philosophers and cited sutras, his voice growing more animated with each passing moment. The old master continued her tea preparation in silence, her attention fully present with each small task. She warmed the teapot, measured the leaves, and waited for the water to reach the perfect temperature. "I have studied the Lotus Sutra for 15 years, the scholar declared, and I believe I understand its essential teaching about the Buddha nature present in all beings. But I am troubled by the apparent contradiction between the doctrine of emptiness and the reality of suffering. How can we say that all phenomena are empty of inherent existence when suffering feels so real, so immediate?" The old master nodded thoughtfully as she poured the hot water over the tea leaves. The fragrance that arose was like a prayer made manifest. The scholar's questions continued to flow, each one more complex than the last. He spoke of the middle way and the two truths, of dependent origination and the nature of consciousness. His words filled the air like incense, thick and heady with intellectual complexity. The old master lifted the teapot and began to pour tea into the scholar's cup. The golden liquid flowed in a perfect arc, steam rising like offering smoke. But as the tea reached the rim of the cup, the scholar's discourse continued unabated. "Furthermore," he said, gesturing emphatically, "I have been contemplating the relationship between meditation and wisdom. Is insight a gradual development, or does it arise suddenly? The Zen masters speak of sudden enlightenment, but the Theravada tradition emphasizes gradual cultivation." The tea reached the rim of the cup, but the old master continued pouring. The hot tea spilled over the edge, flowing across the stone table like a golden river. It pooled around the scholar's books, dampening the pages of his carefully preserved texts. Still, the old master continued to pour, the tea cascading to the ground, soaking into the earth below. "Master," the scholar exclaimed, jumping to his feet, "the cup is full. It's overflowing. You must stop pouring." Only then did the old master set down the teapot. She looked at the scholar with eyes that seemed to hold the wisdom of centuries, and spoke her first words of the entire encounter. "Yes," she said simply, "the cup is full. Just like your mind." The scholar stood in stunned silence, tea dripping from his precious books, his certainties suddenly as unstable as morning mist. "You come to me seeking wisdom," the old master continued, her voice soft but clear as a temple bell. "But your cup is already full, full of knowledge, full of opinions, full of preconceptions about what wisdom should look like. How can I pour anything new into a vessel that has no room?" The scholar looked down at his soaked books, at the tea pooling around his feet, and for the first time in years, he had no words. In that moment of speechlessness, something shifted, the constant chatter of his mind, the endless analysis, the compulsive categorizing. the need to understand everything through the lens of what he already knew, suddenly fell silent. An empty cup, the old master said, beginning to clean up the spilled tea with patient care, can hold the morning dew. It can catch the rain. It can be filled with the most precious tea, or it can hold nothing at all and be equally perfect in its emptiness. The scholar sank back onto the bench, his entire worldview tilting like a ship finding its balance after a storm. For the first time since childhood, he truly didn't know something. More than that, he didn't need to know. "I have spent my life filling my cup," he whispered, more to himself than to the old master, filling it with facts and theories, with arguments and counter-arguments. "I thought wisdom meant having all the answers." The old master smiled as she wiped the last drops of tea from the stone table. "And now," the scholar paused, feeling something like space opening in his chest. "Now I wonder what it would be like to empty it." They sat together in the garden as the sun climbed higher, casting longer shadows between the trees. The scholar's books lay forgotten, their pages slowly drying in the warm air. For the first time in decades, he was not reading, not analyzing, not preparing his next argument. He was simply sitting, simply breathing, simply being present with the moment as it unfolded. Birds called to each other across the garden. The stream continued its eternal conversation with the stones. A butterfly landed on one of the drying books, its wings like stained glass in the morning light. "Master," the scholar finally said, his voice different now, quieter, more humble. "How does one empty the cup of the mind?" The old master was quiet for a long moment, watching the butterfly explore the pages of the book. When she spoke, her words seemed to come from some deep well of understanding. "The same way you empty any cup," she said. "First, you must be willing to let go of what you think is precious. Then, you simply pour it out." "But how do I pour out thoughts? How do I pour out knowledge?" "You don't pour out the knowledge itself," she replied. "You pour out the attachment to the knowledge. You pour out the need to be right. You pour out the fear of not knowing. You pour out the pride that comes from having a full cup." When a cup is empty, it is not useless. It is ready. Ready to receive whatever life wishes to offer. Ready to be filled with wonder instead of certainty. Ready to hold questions instead of answers. Ready to carry the tea of this moment instead of the stale water of yesterday's thoughts. The scholar nodded slowly, beginning to understand. The butterfly lifted from the book and danced away on the morning breeze, leaving the pages to dry completely in the warming sun. As Master Yeshe's story draws to a close, you find yourself back in the present moment, sitting beside him in the monastery garden. The sun has moved across the sky, and the shadows have shifted like the thoughts in your own mind. And what happened to the scholar? You ask, your voice barely disturbing the peace. Master Yeshe smiles. He stayed here for 7 years, learning the art of the empty cup. When he finally left, he carried no books, wrote no treatises, claimed no titles, but everyone who met him afterward spoke of his wisdom. The empty cup, Master Yeshe says, his weathered hands still working gently with the soil, is not about having nothing. It is about being ready for everything. It is about the wisdom that comes not from accumulation, but from spaciousness. not from knowing, but from wonder. As you prepare to drift into sleep, imagine your own mind as a cup. Notice how full it might be, with the concerns of the day, with plans for tomorrow, with memories from the past. There is no judgment here, only gentle awareness. Now, if you wish, you can simply let some of that fullness flow away, like tea spilling over the rim of a cup. Let the thoughts that no longer serve you drain away into the earth of rest. You don't need to carry them into your dreams. Feel your mind becoming spacious like the sky at dawn, like the empty cup ready to receive whatever gift the night may bring. Your breath becomes the gentle pour of tea, in and out, filling and emptying, in perfect rhythm. The monastery garden surrounds you with its peace. Master Yeshe's wisdom flows through you like a gentle stream. The empty cup of your mind is held safely in the hands of sleep. Rest now, dear friend. Rest in the wisdom of the empty cup. Rest in the spaciousness of not knowing. Rest in the perfect fullness of emptiness itself. And as the wisdom of the empty cup settles deeply into your peaceful mind, as you feel the spaciousness that comes from releasing what no longer serves you, Elder Pema's eyes twinkle with the knowing smile of one who has many treasures of wisdom to share. The temple courtyard remains bathed in silver moonlight, the same gentle breeze still carrying the fragrance of jasmine and sandalwood. You feel perfectly comfortable here, perfectly at peace, ready to receive another gift of ancient wisdom. There is another story, Elder Pema says softly, her voice like silk in the night air, one that flows naturally from what we have just learned about emptiness and receptivity. For when our cup is truly empty, when our hearts are open and spacious, we discover something remarkable about what we choose to receive. She adjusts her gray robe slightly, settling deeper into her meditation posture, and you feel yourself sinking even more completely into relaxation, even more ready for the wisdom that is to come. This is a story about choices. Elder Pema continues, about the profound freedom we discover when we realize that no one can force us to accept what they offer, not their anger, not their hatred, not their judgment. Just as our teacup could choose what to receive, so too can our hearts. You notice how the moonlight seems to dance more brightly on the courtyard stones, as if the very earth is eager to hear this teaching. The other students lean forward slightly, their faces serene and expectant, and you feel part of this timeless circle of seekers gathered around wisdom itself. A night bird calls softly from somewhere in the temple gardens, its voice pure and clear in the still air. Elder Pema smiles at the sound, as if even nature itself is preparing to listen to this ancient tale. Many years ago, Elder Pema begins, her words carrying the weight of centuries. When the Buddha walked the dusty paths of ancient India, there lived a man whose heart had become a fortress of anger. This man had heard whispers of the Buddha's teachings, stories of his growing following, and something about this filled him with a rage that burned like wildfire in his chest. Unlike the student with the full cup who simply couldn't receive new wisdom, this man actively rejected it. He didn't want to learn. He wanted to destroy. He didn't seek understanding. He sought confrontation. Day after day, his anger grew stronger, fed by his own bitter thoughts, until it consumed nearly every moment of his waking life. Who is this so-called Buddha? he would mutter as he worked in his fields, to claim such enlightenment. Who is he to gather followers while I am overlooked and forgotten? The man's anger became his closest companion, whispering poison in his ear from sunrise to sunset. You can feel how different this man was from the eager student with the full cup. That student's problem was abundance without wisdom. This man's problem was emptiness filled with venom. That student couldn't receive because there was no space. This man wouldn't receive because he had chosen to fill his space with hatred. And so, one morning when his rage could no longer be contained, the angry man set out to find the Buddha. His journey would teach him something profound about the nature of what we accept and what we reject. For days the angry man walked. Elder Pema continues, his sandals wearing thin on the rocky roads, his water skin growing light, but his anger growing heavier with each step. Unlike a pilgrim seeking truth, he was a warrior seeking battle. Unlike a student seeking wisdom, he was a storm seeking something to destroy. Feel yourself sinking deeper into comfort as you imagine his journey. The hot sun beating down on dusty paths. The weight of anger making each step more difficult. The way hatred makes even the most beautiful landscape appear ugly to eyes clouded by rage. Finally, after many days of travel, the angry man came upon a grove of trees where the Buddha sat in perfect meditation, surrounded by his peaceful students. The contrast was striking. Where the angry man was agitated and restless, the Buddha was still as a mountain lake. Where the angry man's face was twisted with fury, the Buddha's expression was serene as dawn light. The angry man strode into this peaceful scene like a thunderstorm entering a clear sky. His students scattered like leaves before wind, but the Buddha himself remained perfectly motionless, his eyes closed, a gentle smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "You," the angry man shouted, his voice harsh and grating in the peaceful grove, "you false teacher, you deceiver of minds, you are nothing but a fraud leading innocent people astray with your lies." But something unexpected happened when his words met the Buddha's presence. Instead of echoing and amplifying as they did in his own mind, they seemed to simply disappear. Like stones thrown into deep water, they vanished without a trace. For what seemed like hours, Elder Pema's voice flows like a gentle stream. The angry man hurled every insult he could summon. He called the Buddha a liar, a thief of minds, a pretender to wisdom. He mocked his appearance, questioned his teaching, spoke harshly of his family and followers. And through it all, the Buddha sat in perfect stillness, listening with infinite patience, his face showing nothing but compassion for this suffering soul before him. Finally, when the angry man had exhausted every bitter word in his vocabulary, when his throat was raw and his voice reduced to a hoarse whisper, he stood there panting, waiting for the response he was certain would come. Anger to meet anger, hatred to meet hatred. But what happened next changed not only that angry man's life, but has continued to change lives for over 2,000 years since. The Buddha opened his eyes slowly, looked upon the angry man with perfect compassion and spoke in a voice as gentle as rain on spring leaves. "My friend, if someone offers you a gift and you do not accept it, to whom does the gift belong?" The angry man, completely taken off guard by this unexpected question, stammered, "Well, it would still belong to whoever offered it, I suppose. Exactly so, said the Buddha, his smile deepening like sunrise. Today, you have offered me your anger, your hatred, your harsh words and bitter judgments. But I do not accept them. Therefore, they remain entirely with you. I cannot be angry unless I choose to pick up the anger you have set before me. I cannot be insulted unless I accept the insults you offer. I cannot be hurt unless I allow your words to wound me. Feel how this wisdom begins to settle into your own heart, dear friend. Feel how liberating it is to realize that you too have this choice, that you too can decide what gifts you accept and what gifts you decline. The angry man stood there in profound silence. Elder Pema continues, his mouth open, his arms hanging at his sides like empty sleeves. In that moment of perfect stillness, something shifted deep within him, like ice cracking in the spring thaw, like clouds parting to reveal hidden stars. For the first time in years, perhaps for the first time in his entire life, he began to understand something fundamental about the nature of his own suffering. He had been carrying anger like a precious treasure, nurturing it like a beloved child, feeding it like a sacred fire. But now he saw it for what it truly was, a burden no one had asked him to carry. Your anger, the Buddha continued softly, is like a hot coal that you have picked up with the intention of throwing it at another. But while you carry it, while you grip it tightly, while you plan your throw, you are the one being burned. The coal doesn't care who you intend to hurt with it. It simply burns whoever holds it. And slowly, slowly, the angry man began to weep. These were not tears of rage or frustration, but tears of profound relief, tears of recognition, tears of a soul finally understanding that it had been creating its own prison, forging its own chains, carrying its own torture. Teacher, he whispered, falling to his knees in the soft grass, I have been such a fool. I have been carrying this burden as if it were my most precious possession, when all along it has been nothing but poison in my own heart. How do I set it down? How do I stop picking up the burning coals? The Buddha's response was to extend his hand, palm upward, in a gesture of infinite gentleness. As easily as you would release a flower, he said, simply open your hand. Let go. You need not fight the anger, analyze it, or overcome it. Simply stop feeding it. Stop carrying it. Stop accepting it as your truth. Feel yourself sinking deeper now. Elder Pema's voice becomes like a gentle lullaby, deeper into this profound understanding, deeper into the peace that comes from knowing you have this choice, deeper into the comfort of your resting place. The man who had arrived in fury now sat beside the Buddha in perfect stillness. His breathing had become deep and regular, like ocean waves on a peaceful shore. His shoulders had dropped, releasing months of tension. His face, which had been hard as stone with anger, now reflected the soft light of understanding. This is the gift of non-attachment, the Buddha taught, as the evening light began to fade. When someone offers you their anger, you need not accept it. When someone tries to burden you with their hatred, their judgment, their criticism, you can simply let it fall to the ground like a stone. Their emotions belong to them. You need not make them yours. As you rest here in perfect comfort, feel how your own hands are becoming empty, how your own heart is opening to this wisdom, how any anger or resentment you may have carried is simply dissolving like mist in morning sunlight. A gentle student asked, "But teacher, what if the anger seems justified? What if someone has truly wronged us?" The Buddha's smile was like starlight on still water. Justice and anger are not the same thing, dear one. You can seek right action, speak truth, and work for fairness without carrying the burning coal of rage in your heart. In fact, you can do these things far more effectively when your mind is clear and your heart is at peace. As the stars begin to appear in the darkening sky above our temple courtyard, Elder Pema's voice grows softer still. Feel how this ancient wisdom is settling into your bones like warm honey, into your heart like gentle rain on thirsty earth. The Buddha continued teaching as night fell around them. "Consider the clear mountain lake," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "When someone throws a stone into its still surface, ripples spread outward for a moment, but then the water returns naturally to perfect stillness. The lake does not hold on to the disturbance. It simply returns to its essential nature of peace. So too with your consciousness. When someone throws the stone of their anger into the still water of your awareness, you can allow the ripples to settle, allow yourself to return naturally to peace, rather than continuing to create waves long after the original disturbance has passed. Feel this happening in your own mind now. Any ripples of the day's experiences growing smaller and smaller, your awareness returning to its natural state of perfect calm, like that mountain lake reflecting stars in its peaceful depths. The formerly angry man now understood completely. He had been not only accepting the stones others threw into his consciousness, but throwing them himself again and again, keeping his own waters forever disturbed. "I choose to let my hands be empty," he said quietly, opening his palms to the star-filled sky. "I choose to accept only what brings peace, only what nurtures wisdom, only what serves love." And you too, dear friend, can make this same choice. Even as you rest, even as you dream, feeling your own hands opening, your own heart choosing peace. Elder Pema rises slowly from her place in the moonlit courtyard, her movement like flowing water. The other students bow their heads in deep gratitude, their faces luminous with understanding in the silver light. "And so our second cup of wisdom is complete," she whispers, her words seeming to float on the night air itself. "First, we learned to empty our cup so we could receive. Now we have learned that we can choose what we receive, that we need not accept every gift that is offered to our hearts. Sleep now with this double wisdom, dear one. Sleep knowing that your cup is empty and ready for only the finest tea. Sleep knowing that you can decline any bitter brew that others might try to pour. Let the moonlight wash over you like a blessing of peace. Let the gentle night sound sing you into the deepest rest. Let the wisdom of the empty cup and the angry man's transformation carry you into dreams of perfect serenity. Tomorrow you will wake remembering, I choose what I receive. I choose what I carry. I choose peace over anger, wisdom over reaction, love over fear. Sleep well, wise one. Sleep in the profound peace of understanding. May your dreams be filled with wisdom. May your heart remain forever spacious. May you always remember the gift of choice. And may you wake tomorrow with hands open to receive only what serves your highest good. Master Lobsang sits in the peaceful silence that follows his telling of the angry man's encounter with the Buddha. The meditation hall seems to hold the wisdom of that teaching, like cupped hands holding sacred water, you feel the profound truth settling into your bones. That anger, like a hot coal, burns only the one who grasps it. The butter lamps continue their gentle dance, casting the same warm golden light that has witnessed countless teachings in this ancient space. Outside, the mountain wind carries the soft tinkling of prayer bells, a sound that seems to bridge not just the physical distance between the monastery buildings, but the space between one moment of wisdom and the next. You notice how deeply relaxed you've become, how the teaching has already begun its healing work within you. Your breathing has found its natural rhythm, slow and peaceful, like waves lapping gently against a moonlit shore. Master Lobsang closes his eyes for a moment, his weathered hands resting peacefully in his lap. In this quiet pause, you can sense him drawing from the vast well of wisdom that flows through this sacred place. Teachings passed down through generations of awakened beings, stories that have comforted and guided seekers for over 2 millennia. When he opens his eyes again, there's a gentle smile playing at the corners of his mouth, as if he's just remembered something beautiful. The candlelight reflects in his eyes like stars scattered across the surface of a still mountain lake. "My dear friends," he says softly, his voice carrying the warmth of a grandfather sharing treasured stories with beloved grandchildren. The Buddha's wisdom flows like an endless river, each teaching connected to the next, each story illuminating another facet of the precious jewel of understanding. You have just heard how the Buddha received anger with such grace that it transformed into emptiness, how he refused to accept what was not his to carry. But there is another teaching, intimately connected to this one, that shows us how to distinguish between what serves our awakening and what merely feeds our restless minds. Master Lobsang shifts slightly, his robes rustling like leaves in a gentle breeze. The sound is so soft, so natural, that it only deepens your sense of being held in perfect safety and comfort. Just as the angry man brought his rage to the Buddha, expecting it to be received, we often bring our endless questions to our spiritual practice, expecting them all to be answered. But the Buddha, in his infinite wisdom, showed us that not all questions serve our peace, just as not all gifts are meant to be accepted. The Master's voice grows even softer, if such a thing is possible, drawing you deeper into the sanctuary of approaching sleep. And so, let me share with you another encounter, another moment when the Buddha's wisdom cut through confusion, like moonlight-piercing clouds. You feel yourself settling even more deeply into your meditation cushion, your body becoming one with the ancient stone floor, your breath synchronized with the monastery's eternal rhythm of peace. This is the story of a young monk whose mind was filled with burning questions, questions that kept him from the very peace he sought. Like the angry man who carried coals of rage, this monk carried arrows of endless inquiry that wounded his own heart. And like the angry man, he too would discover that the Buddha's wisdom could transform even the most persistent suffering into profound understanding. Long ago, Master Lobsang's voice flows like honey mixed with moonlight. There lived a young monk named Malunkyaputta. He was earnest in his practice, devoted in his meditation, but his mind was filled with burning questions that gave him no rest. Day and night, these questions tormented him like thorns in his heart. You can almost see this young monk, pacing in his cell, his mind churning with the great mysteries of existence. Feel how your own mind, in contrast, is beginning to settle, drawn into the rhythm of the Master's words, finding peace in this ancient wisdom. What questions plagued young Malunkyaputta? Master Lobsang asks softly. He wondered, is the universe eternal or not eternal? Is it finite or infinite? Is the soul the same as the body or different? Does the enlightened one exist after death or not? These questions consumed him, burned within him like a fever that would not break. As you listen, notice how these abstract questions seem to drift away from you like clouds passing across a clear sky. Your mind is finding its natural state of calm, drawn deeper into rest with each gentle word. Finally, Master Lobsang continues, his voice growing even softer, drawing you deeper into tranquility. Malunkyaputta could bear his torment no longer. He approached the Buddha and declared, "Blessed One, unless you answer these questions for me, whether the universe is eternal, whether it is finite, whether the soul is the body, I will abandon the spiritual path. I will leave the Sangha and return to worldly life." The Master pauses, allowing you to feel the weight of this ultimatum. Yet somehow, instead of creating tension, this pause deepens your sense of peace, as if you're sinking into a warm bath of serenity. The Buddha looked upon Malunkyaputta with infinite compassion, his eyes reflecting the depth of perfect understanding. And then, in his wisdom, he told this story. Master Lobsang's voice becomes even more gentle, so soft it seems to merge with your own breathing, your own heartbeat, your own journey into sleep. Imagine, the Master whispers, a man walking through a forest who is suddenly struck by a poisoned arrow. The arrow pierces his flesh, and the poison begins to spread through his body. His friends rush to help him, ready to remove the arrow and treat the wound. But the wounded man stops them. You can visualize this scene so clearly now, yet it feels distant and dreamlike, as if you're watching it through a soft mist of approaching sleep. "Wait!" cries the wounded man, even as the poison spreads through his veins. "Before you remove this arrow, I must know. Who shot it? What is his name? What caste does he belong to? Is he tall or short, dark or fair? What kind of bow did he use? Was it made of wood or bamboo? What type of string was on the bow? What kind of feathers were on the arrow? From what tree did the wood for the arrow come?" Master Lobsang's voice carries a gentle humor, and you find yourself almost smiling in your deepening relaxation. The absurdity of the wounded man's questions feels far away, irrelevant to your growing peace. The wounded man continues his demands. What was the bowman wearing? Where does he live? What did he eat for breakfast? Why did he choose to shoot me? What were his motivations? Until I know all these answers, do not remove the arrow. You feel yourself sinking deeper into the meditation cushion, deeper into comfort, deeper into the approaching embrace of sleep. The questions seem to fade like echoes in a vast canyon. "My dear Malunkyaputta," the Buddha said gently, "what would happen to such a man?" Master Lobsang pauses, and in that pause, you feel your breathing deepen, your body becoming heavier, more relaxed with each moment. The young monk understood immediately. Lord, such a man would die before getting answers to his questions. The poison would spread through his body while he demanded to know irrelevant details. He would perish from his attachment to knowledge that does not heal. The Master's voice becomes almost a whisper now, blending with the soft sounds of the monastery settling into evening quiet. the distant sound of prayer wheels turning, the gentle footsteps of monks walking in meditation, the mountain wind singing through ancient eaves. Exactly so, the Buddha replied, and you, dear Malunkyaputta, are like this wounded man. You have been struck by the arrow of suffering, birth, aging, death, sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, and despair. I am here to remove this arrow, to heal your wound, to stop the spread of suffering's poison. But instead of accepting this healing, you demand to know whether the universe is eternal, whether it is finite, whether the soul is different from the body. Feel how deeply relaxed you've become as Master Lobsang continues, his words flowing like a gentle stream carrying you toward the ocean of sleep. These questions, the Buddha explained, do not lead to peace. They do not lead to wisdom or to awakening. They are like trying to measure the depth of the ocean while drowning, like studying the chemistry of water while dying of thirst. Whether the universe is eternal or not eternal, finite or infinite, you still experience birth, aging, sickness, and death. Whether the soul is the same as the body or different, you still feel pain when the body is injured, still feel joy when the heart is happy. You notice how your own concerns, your own endless questions and worries, seem to dissolve in the face of this simple wisdom. Your mind is becoming as clear and still as a mountain lake under starlight. What I teach, the Buddha continued, is suffering and the end of suffering. I teach the poised arrow's removal, not an analysis of the arrow's composition. I teach the medicine, not the history of the disease. I teach the path to peace, not a philosophical map of all possible paths. Master Lobsang's voice grows even softer, almost merging with the rhythm of your slowing heartbeat. The Buddha concluded, "Therefore, Malunkyaputta, remember what I have explained as explained, and what I have not explained as not explained. And why have I not explained these things? Because they are not useful. They do not belong to the fundamentals of the holy life. They do not lead to peace, to knowledge, to awakening." The Master shifts slightly, and you hear the whisper of his robes, a sound that somehow deepens your tranquility. "And so, my dear friends," he says, his voice now so gentle it seems to come from within your own peaceful mind, "we learn to distinguish between questions that heal and questions that harm, between knowledge that liberates and knowledge that binds. You feel yourself settling even deeper, your body becoming one with the meditation cushion, your breath flowing like a gentle tide. When your mind is filled with endless questions, why did this happen to me? What if this goes wrong? How will that work out? What do others think of me? Remember the poisoned arrow. These questions often keep us from addressing what actually needs attention in this moment. They are like trying to solve tomorrow's crossword puzzle while today's house is on fire. Your own questions and worries seem to float away like soap bubbles in a gentle breeze, each one dissolving as it rises, leaving behind only peace. Instead, Master Lobsang whispers, "Ask the questions that heal. How can I be present to this moment? How can I respond with compassion? What would bring peace to this situation? What would love do here?" These questions remove the arrow rather than analyzing it. As you rest here tonight, the Master's voice becomes one with the monastery's evening silence. Let go of the questions that do not serve. Release the endless wondering about things beyond your influence. Allow your mind to settle like silt in a clear pond. You feel yourself dissolving into perfect comfort, your body completely relaxed, your mind free from its usual chatter. Feel how peaceful it is to not need all the answers right now. Notice how restful it is to trust that some questions need not be answered tonight, or perhaps ever. Experience the deep relief of releasing the burden of knowing everything, understanding everything, figuring everything out. The butter lamps in the meditation hall seem to flicker more gently now, their light soft and warm like a loving embrace. The incense has burned down to the sweetest, most subtle fragrance, barely perceptible yet perfectly present. Let the wisdom of the Buddha flow through you like healing water, washing away all unnecessary complexity, all harmful analysis, all poisonous overthinking. Rest in the simple truth that you are exactly where you need to be, knowing exactly what you need to know in this moment. Master Lobsang's voice becomes almost indistinguishable from the mountain wind, from your own deepening breath, from the very essence of peace itself. May this teaching accompany you into the deepest rest. May you sleep with the freedom of one who has set down all unnecessary burdens. May your dreams be filled with the peace that comes from focusing on what truly matters. The meditation hall seems to wrap around you like a gentle cocoon, the ancient stones holding you in perfect safety, the centuries of devotion supporting your rest. And when you wake, may you remember, the arrow of suffering can be removed through presence, through compassion, through focusing on what heals rather than what merely analyzes. This is the Buddha's gift to you, the wisdom to know which questions serve life and which serve only the endless hunger of an unsatisfied mind. The Master's voice fades to the barest whisper. Sleep now in the peace of this understanding. Rest in the sanctuary of this wisdom. Let go completely into the embrace of the deepest, most restorative sleep. The meditation hall grows quiet, except for the gentle sounds of mountain night, wind in the prayer flags, the distant tinkle of temple bells, the soft breathing of seekers at rest. Master Lobsang sits in perfect stillness, his presence a blessing upon your sleep. As you drift into dreams, you carry with you the gentle wisdom of the poisoned arrow, the understanding that not all questions need answers, and the deep peace that comes from focusing on healing rather than analyzing, on presence rather than endless wondering. Sleep deeply, dear friend. Sleep in the peace of ancient wisdom. Sleep in the embrace of timeless truth.